The hand is a remarkable achievement of nature, comprised of no fewer than 27 bones, 30 muscles, hundreds of motor units that control it, thousands of sensory receptors, all mapped out in fine detail on the contralateral side of the brain. It's an incredible sensory device and motor tool. And yet, most of us go through our entire lives not knowing very much about how it actually works. In this video, I want to look a little bit at the hand, how it's actually designed, so we can get a better sense of how to use it and how to use it to better advantage. The main muscles that move the hand are on the forearm. These muscles, they're really on both sides, but they taper to tendons that attach either to the wrist and move the hand at the wrist, or the tendons cross the wrist and go to the fingers, so we move the fingers. Because we do so much gripping with the hand itself often becomes tight and these muscles overworked. And we saw in an earlier video that one way to address that is, instead of thinking of gripping with the fingers, which causes the muscles to tighten, if we think of the fingers, then that will affect the muscles. A simple way to do this is to place your forearm on the table and think of your fingers pointing up to the ceiling. Don't worry if they don't point up directly. You could just think of letting them curl a bit. Still, you could work the same way. And if you think of your fingers now just kind of going in the direction that they're already going in, after a while you'll feel a kind of a tingling and a softening of the hand and the joints of the hand, and it will begin to affect the forearm muscles. You can also do this if you're thinking of the fingers pointing up. You could do it, you could sort of deviate your hand so now your thumb is more in a straight line, and now you could think of the thumb pointing up. You could also think of length between the elbow on the table and your thumb, so that you're beginning to have a sense that the thumb comes out of the entire forearm. Now, why is this important? Because when we begin to think of the hand in this way and the fingers, it begins to open the hand up. And we saw in an earlier video that the hand is not only a motor tool, its purpose is not only to grasp and grip and move things, but it's also a paw. I mean, when you go onto all fours, if I support weight in an arm, the hand is not gripping, we're not doing something with the hand itself, it's functioning more like a foot or a paw. When we use the hand in this way, we have a different sense of how it works. Generally speaking, when we go on the hand like that, we're using, the palm as a whole. But a very important part of the hand that we're using is the heel of the hand, which is here. Now, what exactly is the heel of the hand? Well, it's made up of the wrist bones. That's a little confusing because when we refer to the wrist, we often speak of this area where the wristwatch goes. We could also refer to, when we use the word wrist, the wrist joint, which is where the hand as a whole articulates at the wrist here. But when we refer to the wrist bones, we're referring really to the heel of the hand, which are actually part of the hand itself. This is really important because when we use the hand and are not clear about that, we're often stiffening the wrist and not actually using the hand in an open way. So here's a simple way to explore that. If I take hold of this glass and I hold it in one hand, and I think about now how I would take hold of the glass with my right hand, I could use my fingers, and much of the time that's how we do, in fact, use our hand. We use the fingers in a kind of a grippy way, and I'm now holding the glass, but I'm using quite a lot of tension in my hand, wrist, and forearm to do that. If instead I think about the heel of the hand, those wrist bones, and let the heel of the hand go onto the glass gently while keeping my fingers extended, and then let the fingers wrap around the glass like this. Now I have a very different sense that I'm using the fingers to grasp the glass, but I've got the very, very full and soft contact of the whole palm, including the wrist bones or the heel of the hand there, so that I have a much firmer grasp and a fuller grasp of the glass, and yet I'm using much less tension. Another way to explore the use of the whole palm, including the heel of the hand, is to place your hands in the palms on the table. If you do that just sort of in an unthinking way, just plopping your hands down on the table, you may not fully feel the wrist. You might even tighten the fingers slightly to put your hand down. If instead you extend your hand by your side, raise your hand at the elbow, like I'm doing here, and then gently extending the hand at the wrist here, make contact with the heel of the hand first on the table, as in the illustration, and then let your fingers come down onto the table. You could do this with one hand, you could do both hands together. Then you should be more aware of that area, the wrist area, as a key point of contact when we use the hands like feet. And when you go on your hands on all fours, that's a key point that's bearing weight. So it's a more primitive, sort of elemental use of the hand that includes the wrist bones as part of the hand itself. So now, with both of your hands on the table, we can take a moment to explore the contact of different parts of the hand on the table. You might, for instance, feel the edge of your thumb here. You might feel edge of the pinky or the pads of the fingers. You might feel the heel of the hand. There's also this meaty area here on the side of the hand, the pinky side of the hand, and the meaty area under the thumb. This is called the thenar eminence. This is called the hypothenar eminence. They're key contact points, and there's also sort of an arch here. Corresponds a little bit to the arch at the front of the foot from the big toe to the little toe. And when we take a moment to just feel these different areas contacting the table, that also will give the hand a chance to open up and get us more in touch with how the hand is really rather like a foot and can be open and not gripping. We can also see from the illustration these areas that form a kind of topography of the hand, and those key areas that make it up. That thenar eminence, the heel of the hand, the pinky, meaty pinky area in that arch. And notice that the thenar eminence overlaps with the heel of the hand, and the hypothenar eminence overlaps. But all of that is key to how the hand contacts the table. And you could even play around with rolling the hand a bit onto the pinky side, like this, and then rolling it on the other side, on the thumb side, like this. You could see it in the illustration as well. And that gives also a little more awareness of those parts of the hand and how it can open up. So now we can come back full circle and look at how the whole shoulder girdle works in conjunction with the hand. So we've got the hand now in our awareness. We've seen parts of the hand that can open up. We saw in an earlier video that the entire shoulder girdle has a kind of configuration or kind of a matrix, and that when we place the hands on a surface, we can leave the whole arm alone. The shoulder is expansive, so the hand is going onto the surface, and the whole arm and shoulder girdle open up. Now with the hand opening up, that in turn will help affect the whole shoulder girdle, and you might even find that when you keep thinking of your hand, the fingers, the different contact points, that contact helps the shoulder as a whole. In the next video, we're going to look at how the hand, now that it's more open, can be used in fine motor tasks and identify exactly what's going on when we do that.